I'm excited to see the Tigers perform, the Clemson Tigers.
Absolutely. Next, we're talking to your teammate, Russell Gage, an LSU Tiger. Do you think that he'll
Oh
feel
man,
differently about that?
y'all talking to that man? Oh Lord, he about to get on the cut of food. But no, he did.
This is Campus Lore Live, where NFL players are the experts on college football. I'm your host, Drew Butler, joined virtually alongside Aaron Murray. And this week on Campus Lore Live, we're joined by Grady Jarrett of the Atlanta Falcons and former Clemson Tiger, and his teammate, Atlanta Falcon Russell Gage, who is a former LSU Tiger. Aaron, the national championship is set. It's the battle between number 1 LSU and number 3 Clemson, taking place in New Orleans on January 13th. And what a matchup this is sure to be. And we'll start with the Peach Bowl. LSU scores 49 points in the first half against Oklahoma. Joe Burrow goes for over 400 yards and 7 touchdowns in the first half. You and I, Aaron, specifically you, all season long have said how good Joe Burrow is. I cannot think of another player, and I've thought about this all week long, who has gone from average to phenomenal in one season. That's exactly what Joe Burrow's done.
Well, it's not just phenomenal, Drew, but I think right now, and I think we talked about this earlier, about midway through the season, Joe Burrow has had, and regardless if he wins this game or loses this national championship game, he has had the greatest single season of any college quarterback of all time. Yeah. You can compare him to Tim Tebow, you can compare him to Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, Matt Leinart. I mean, go back to some of the greats from the 80s and 90s. He has had what he's done from the accuracy, from his knowledge, the ball placement, the touchdowns, the protecting the football, the running it when he needs to run the football. It's just amazing. I had a feeling they would win the game big. I didn't think they'd put up 49 points in the first half.
Who did?
I mean, he went on an absolute tear the entire game. It's just he's in a rhythm right now. He's seeing the game at a very slow pace. We talk about the game slowing down for you. The game right now is like he's playing backup football with a bunch of 5-year-olds. I mean, it is just so slow, and it's fun to watch. I think he's going to go out there and do the same thing in the national championship game.
All right, speaking of slow, and I want your advice here, your thought process as a quarterback. I think it's fair to say Joe Burrow's not the greatest athlete in the world. He's got this deceptive elusiveness to him. When he is in the pocket, the way he is able to escape pressure with just a few steps, it reminds me a lot of Tom Brady. And that's not exactly hyperbole. I'm not comparing the two as quarterbacks. I'm just saying in the pocket, his deceptive elusiveness, his quick moves, the way he steps up and then gets outside and away from pressure is unlike anything that you've seen recently in college football. But then to pair it, Aaron, with his accuracy throwing the football while on the move, it's unbelievable. I mean, he is throwing 50, 55, 60-yard throws right into the breadbasket to covered and wide open receivers. That's a quick way to get 7 touchdowns in one half.
I know people have been comparing him with Tom Brady. I think someone a little bit more recent memory to me, someone who I played with is Carson Wentz. Similar body stature, big guys, both about 6'4", 6'5", in that 230 to 240 range weight-wise, and just find a way to either shed off a tackler, say a defensive end comes up and wants to get a hand on the shoulder pad. Some of these smaller guys, they go down. Carson Wentz and Joe Burrow are big enough, strong enough to get off that, move in the pocket, kind of have that feel to kind of create some more time. Another guy too, Tony Romo. Tony just would see the game and he could see the angles. And I even talked to Tony in the offseason about this. He just felt the pressure and just knew where to go ahead of time, just to buy that split second longer to allow his receivers to get open down the field. And then obviously the accuracy that you alluded to is some of the best we've seen in the college game.
All right, so Joe Burrow looks unstoppable. On the flip side, who he's going to face in the national championship, Trevor Lawrence, the Clemson quarterback, he looks unshakable. What a game it was in the Fiesta Bowl. Clemson down 16-0 in the first half, storms back, beats Ohio State 29-23 on the heels of Trevor Lawrence as he ran for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and through the air as he had an effective game passing the ball as well. I think this is going to be the biggest talking point leading up to the national championship game. Joe Burrow against Trevor Lawrence. Tell me what you saw in Trevor Lawrence mounting that comeback. He's now 25-0 as a starter, Aaron. He never looked fazed. Those guys are calm, they're composed, they've been there before, and I think that's a huge advantage for Clemson heading into the national championship game.
Well, it was. I think it was good too for Clemson to go against someone that could compete with them. I mean, if we talk about the ACC, this entire season just being down. I mean, they really did not match anyone on their schedule that you could say, okay, they have a legitimate chance to beat Clemson. They can match up for them talent for talent, offensively, defensively. I mean, North Carolina was in that football game. Talent-wise, North Carolina is nowhere near as talented as Clemson. So it was good to see those guys battle to fight, not just Trevor Lawrence, but the defense, the receivers on the outside. Travis Etienne may not have been his best game running the football, but finding ways to get him the ball in space as a receiving threat out of the backfield, I thought was pretty darn good as well. But great defense. I want to start first with the defense. Before we get to the quarterback, their red zone defense. And I know there's a couple drop balls by Dobbins in that game, but their ability to keep that thing close, because you're watching it, it could have been 28-0 in the first half.
Oh, yeah.
It could have been game over real soon. And we're talking about Ohio State versus LSU in this national championship game, but they clamped down that bend but don't break mentality defensively, got it done. And then Trevor Lawrence's kind of his moxie, his ability to not only throw the ball, but that big run for the touchdown to kind of will his way to a victory, I thought was impressive. I mean, the kid just wins football games. There's something to be said about a guy who just doesn't lose. I mean, it's been 3 years since the guy's lost the game and going back all the way to high school.
Yeah, you just mentioned it. I mean, Clemson's red zone defense proved to be the difference. They better be able to show up against LSU, because you better make LSU kick a couple of field goals, or else if you're going to get in a scoring competition with that offense, Joe Brady, Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, it could be a long day. Let's talk about these skill positions, though, because you mentioned Travis Etienne had an effective game catching the ball, 3 receptions, 2 touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Helaire for LSU wasn't necessarily that effective. He's kind of still dealing with that hamstring injury. But then you go to the receiver positions for Clemson. T. Higgins, Justin Ross. For LSU, Jamar Jefferson, Chase. I mean, this is a truly amazing matchup of 2 elite offenses. Who do you tilt towards? What's your X factor on the offensive sides of the ball for Clemson and LSU?
Well, if we're going to break it down by position, I mean, quarterback first, I'm going to go with Joe Burrow. I mean, He is the Heisman winner right now. He's playing at an all-time high. Nothing against Trevor Lawrence. I mean, we're talking about this football game. The number 1 pick in the NFL draft the next 2 years is going to be playing this game.
Yep.
You got Joe Burrow, who's going to be number 1 for Cincinnati. And then you got Trevor Lawrence, who's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft for whoever is the worst team in the NFL next year. So 2 elite quarterbacks are going to be starting on Sunday. We get to sit back and watch these guys duel it out the entire game, which is, for me, a guy who loves the quarterback position. I am just so excited to watch these guys.
Absolutely.
Running back position, I would think Etienne right now, you give him a slight edge to it. Slight edge. You look at Clyde Edwards, obviously how healthy is he going to be? I think he'll be healthy enough with the 2-week break. The hamstring should be good to go. Both guys are great running between the tackles. Both guys are tremendous coming out of the backfield, and that's such a matchup. I think that's going to be pivotal in this game, one-on-one with linebackers and safeties from the running back position. Receiving-wise, I'd give the edge to LSU right now. I think the way Jefferson's playing, you throw in Thaddeus Moss, the tight end. You got Jamar Chase, just a bunch of studs. And obviously Joe Burrow is making them better with the accuracy. Clemson's receivers must play better. I know Ohio State's one of the best defenses in the country, but Amari Rodgers, Justin Ross, and T. Higgins did not show up in that football game. They just didn't. Amari Rodgers didn't catch a ball to the 4th quarter in that deep over route to get them in a position to go down there and score. They were non-existent for the majority of that game. They must step up against an LSU team who I think defensively has finally woken up and started playing football the way we know LSU defense can play football. Talent on the outside of cornerback. Grant Delpit's one of the best safeties in the country. So those guys, it's on their shoulders, them and Trevor Lawrence, to go out there and make this thing a tight football game and create some big explosive plays down the field.
All right, LSU's getting all the love, and rightfully so, but we cannot forget Clemson is the defending national champions, 25 straight victories. They have had an amazing run, and last year The same talking point was before the national championship game. Alabama, prolific offense. They looked unstoppable. But Brent Venables and that defense did an amazing job. The offense for Clemson obviously scored a ton of points as well. They took down what everybody thought was the greatest college football team, or one of them, in recent history. They get to do it again. And this time they've got even more time to prepare, Aaron. This game is a 2-week stretch past when they played the semifinal games. Brent Venables seems to be the X factor for Clemson. How do you think he's going to be able to manage slowing down this explosive LSU offense, Joe Burrow, Joe Brady, Steve Ensminger?
It's going to be tough because no one has seemed to kind of give him any indication of how to do it. I mean, you look at LSU season this year, no one has been able to slow these guys down at all. I mean, it's just been over and over. I mean, you can go back to the Auburn game and watch those guys, but you need a front seven like Auburn to kind of make that happen. And Clemson's good all around. I think they're solid at the front four. Their linebackers, their secondary is talented. It's tough. There's just so many weapons because I said if you want to focus on the receivers for LSU and just say, okay, listen, our goal is to play cover 2. We're going to stop Justin Jefferson. We're going to stop all these talented Thaddeus Moss, and we're just going to slow down the passing game. Clyde Edwards from the middle of the season on has shown that if you want to stop the pass game, I'm going to run it right down your throat. Like I said, he should be healthy for this national championship game. I'm not a doctor. I don't know 100%, but he played in the previous game. That indicates that he's healthy enough to go out there and compete, plus 2 weeks off. So I just don't know where you go. I think you do have to stop the run. I think you have to keep Joe Burrow contained within the pocket. Don't let him escape. Find a way to make him beat you from within the pocket the entire game, because a lot of the big explosive plays you see from Joe Burrow is when he does get outside the pocket. When he gets on the escape, the secondary breaks down, he finds a guy wide open down the field, and all of a sudden a 15-yard possible play turns into a 15-yard gain. So keep him contained, and I think you got to get a turnover or two in the game and kind of create some points off of that as well.
Much easier said than done. I mean, I've been thinking about this all week, and I don't know where to go. So I'm going to let you have the floor first. Be bold. Give me a prediction for what's going to happen in the national championship game, and then I'll tell you what I think.
It's going to be a tremendous game. I mean, these are two elite football teams. This is, some great coaching going on right now. I don't see a blowout like we saw in last year's game. I just think both offenses are powerful enough. I give the slight edge to Clemson on the defensive side of the football. I think LSU still wins it, though. I think just the way Joe Burrow has played this season, the confidence that he's played with, their defense playing better these past few weeks, I say LSU wins this game 35-31.
35-31. That's a great prediction. I like that a lot. And LSU, is there any chance they can replicate the success they had in the first half against Oklahoma? I don't know. But Joe Brady and that offensive staff did an amazing job, and they panned to him in the coach's box, and you can read his lips when he said, they can't stop us. And if you can't stop what LSU's doing, they're going to come back and do that over and over and over again. Can Brent Venables and the Clemson defense stop them? I think they can. I really do. I keep going back to last year and what they were able to do against that Alabama offense that had so many weapons and a quarterback playing at such a high level in Tua Tagovailoa. Clemson's been there. Clemson knows they can do this. Clemson has beaten the SEC's best a couple of times, and they know they can do it again. Aaron, I think Clemson's going to win this football game. I think the magical season that Joe Burrow and LSU have had will unfortunately come to a close with a loss in the state of Louisiana, as this game is in New Orleans. I'm going to go 38-35. Clemson beats LSU, and Trevor Lawrence, 26-0 as a starter, two-time national champion at the end of his sophomore year. It's going to be a fantastic game. That's the most important thing. It should be a 4-quarter battle, and hopefully these two great undefeated teams give every college football lover what they deserve. I wonder what our next guest is going to think. Atlanta Falcons' own and former Clemson Tiger Grady Jarrett joins us next after the break. Come on right back. You're watching Campus Lore Live. Welcome back into Campus Lore Live. Drew Butler, now pleased to be joined by our first ever 3-time guest in Campus Lore Live history, of course, Grady Jarrett, current Atlanta Falcon and Clemson Tiger great. Grady, thanks so much for joining us, man. Wow, what a game Clemson played a week ago against Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl, winning 29-23. These Clemson Tigers look unshakable, down 16-0 in the first half. They come storming back and finish it off with an interception to cap off a victory. Clemson's won 2 national titles since you've left. Now, I always say every house needs a great foundation. You were part of building that foundation at Clemson. What's the culture like right now at Clemson? It seems like they can do no wrong.
Yeah, man, it's a special place. It's a special place. A lot of work. A lot of guys before the guys that's enjoying all the fruits of the labor now put in to get it to where it's at. And since Coach Sweeney taking over, they just made it. I mean, it's like college football wonderland, to be honest. I mean, the whole college experience, from being the student life all the way to the athlete life, man, they got it down pat. And it's a great place to play, great place to grow up, and it's a great place to become a man.
Yeah, what a game they had. And I mentioned they were down 16-0. Clearly they had the experience. I mean, this is their 4th straight college football playoff. Seeing them not be too fazed by being down in that hole, speak to that as a current NFL defensive lineman. When everything's kind of going haywire, how do you maintain focus and know that you've got plenty of time to make up ground?
When they were down, I was in a comfortable space because it was still so early in the game. You know, I felt like they were. I knew that Ohio State would come out and play strong, and it was still just 2 scores down, to be honest, with it being 16 points. So I think they were in a good spot. And being a defensive lineman in a situation like that, when you're down points like that, you know you got to stop that run, because the other team gonna try to start running the ball around out the clock. And then on the other end of it, Ohio State, they feel like they can pin their ears back and go rush the pass or something. But thank God for Trevor Lawrence, right? So,
yeah.
So he brought the wheels out on him and went to go score a touchdown.
Yeah, no question. I mean, the sheer amount of star power that was on that field between both teams. Let's just go down the list. Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Justin Ross, T. Higgins. On the flip side, Justin Fields, Chase Young, J.K. Dobbins, Olave. So many great players. I think what's kind of being overshadowed and even looking towards this national championship game is the Clemson defense, right? A year ago, they put a number of guys in the first round off that defensive line. Isaiah Simmons is a certified baller, but Brent Venables has these guys playing as a unit, and it does not matter what offense that they go up against. It seems like they know where to be, when to be there, and what to do. They're going to face their best test ever going up against Joe Burrow in this LSU offense. Talk to me about Coach Venables, because I keep saying he is the X factor.
Without a doubt. He's a guy that has a very, very unique skill set in knowing what to do in certain situations. He like to get all the information in and call the perfect play for the perfect situation. But definitely going up against Joe Burrow and LSU Tigers, man, they're gonna be a tough test. But I think the preparation in the meeting rooms, watching that film study, is what really, really separate Coach V, and it's a gift that he has. And I know as a player, sometimes we used to feel like we was waiting on the call a little too long, but he'll give us right in the perfect call. So I think that's because the rap about him is he kind of take a little long to get the call in, but he calling that perfect play. You know, he like a perfectionist. He want that perfect play. So, and then the guys got to be ready to perform. So I think they're gonna be well prepared, as they have been all year.
Yeah, what's different this year about the national championship game is that the semifinals were on December 28th. The national championship isn't until January 13th. Think about that time of preparation. You played in a Super Bowl. You had those 2 weeks to prepare. How important is that extra time, especially going up against this amazing spread RPO offense that LSU is bringing in? Do you think that could prove to be the difference maker for Clemson?
Absolutely. I think that extra time, it gives the players more time to heal. They're playing more games in college football that they have been over the past couple of years, so it gives the players more time to heal, the teams more time to prepare, and it just gives us more time to get ready. But at the same time, LSU got the same time as well. So the way you use that time that you're given is going to be very, very important in your preparation, and you can't take it lightly.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I think it's pretty remarkable to watch LSU's offense work. And Joe Brady, of course, came from the NFL as the New Orleans Saints passing game coordinator / assistant receivers coach. And one thing that you see in the NFL often, and you know this, is that if an offense finds something that works, they're coming right back to it the next play. In college, it may be different. You can go in at halftime, make some adjustments. Joe Brady does that, man. If you see something, or if he sees something that works, he's going to come right back to the well and expose it once again. How do you stop that as a defense or as a defensive player when you say, we're kind of leaking in this spot? How do you fix that on the field?
You got to make the necessary adjustments because, like you said, if it's working, they're gonna keep going and keep going. So, I mean, what coach wouldn't do that? So you got to be able to make adjustments to be able to make the stops because if you don't, it's just like you're just gonna keep poking at it, and then nobody like to be that defense that's giving up the same play over and over and over again. So, you definitely got to be ready to make adjustments on the move, and it might have to come on the sideline versus waiting just to halftime because the coaches upstairs in the box gonna have to be on it, to be able to match that.
No doubt. And it seemed like Ohio State was not ready for Trevor Lawrence to get off on the ground over 100 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns against the Buckeyes to will Clemson to victory to make it to the national championship game. It was cool when you heard the announcers report that him and Chase Bryce were in the meeting room late Friday night and said, hey, we think that we see some opportunity here for Trevor to keep the ball and extend some plays with the legs. And that proved to be quite a difference maker in the game. Who do you think will be the biggest difference maker in the national championship game?
The biggest difference, I'm thinking, one of my favorite players on the team is the running back Travis Etienne. Yeah. Man, when he get going, I mean, it's just a whole different monster, and they're gonna have to go against a tough defense. But definitely on the offensive side, I think once Etienne get going, it's gonna be really, really tough. And they got him. He was a little slow on the ground as far as rushing yards, but they still got him the ball in the passing game. You see how that turned out for us when he started getting the ball. So we just got to find a way to give him the ball, get him going early, and because once he get going, he one of, if not the best back in the country. And then on the defensive side, I'm a big Isaiah Simmons fan, man. That guy can play all over the field. It was fun seeing him back there playing free safety, come across and get that pick. I mean, I saw something today. He was playing 5 different positions throughout the whole season. So he's a definitely special guy. He has a really bright future.
Yeah, he really does. There's no doubt about that. Seems like people are sleeping on Clemson. It's hard to believe they've won 25 straight games. They're the defending national champions. LSU getting a ton of love, and deservedly so. Number 1 versus number 3 in New Orleans, right in LSU's backyard. Are you going to the game, Grady? And give me your prediction. What's going to happen in the national championship?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to see my Tigers. I'm going to see them. I'm going to see them win it all. That's definitely my prediction. I don't have a score. Maybe somewhere in the 20 ranges on each team, but I think we'll come out on top. 2 very, very respected programs. It's going to be a hard-fought battle in their backyard, but them Clemson fans travel deep. So I don't think that the tables will be turned too much. So it's going to be an even playing field, I feel like, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see the Tigers perform, the Clemson Tigers.
Absolutely. Next, we're talking to your teammate Russell Gage, an LSU Tiger. Do you think that he'll feel differently about that?
Y'all talking to that man? Oh Lord, he about to get on the cut of food. But no, he did. No, but that's my guy, man. He LSU ride or die all the way. That's his school, and so he funny. We was just messing with each other earlier today.
Awesome, Grady. Well, hey, man, thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Campus Lore Live. Have fun at the national championship game, and stick around because next we'll be joined by Russell Gage. Come on right back. We are back. It's Campus Lore Live. Drew Butler now pleased to be joined by Russell Gage, Atlanta Falcon, 2018 6th-round draft pick from LSU. Russell, we just talked to Grady Jarrett, your Falcon teammate, former Clemson Tiger. You could probably guess what he thought about the national championship game that's coming up between the number 1 ranked LSU Tigers and the number 3 ranked Clemson Tigers. But let's talk about your time at LSU, what you've been witnessing, this LSU team that has been putting up absolutely insane numbers on the offensive side of the ball in 2019. For the longest time, Russell, we've always heard if LSU just had a quarterback, they could finally get it going. Well, they found that in Heisman Trophy winning Joe Burrow. Did you expect it to be anywhere near the production that they've had this year?
I don't think anyone could expect it with the numbers he's put up this year, the production he's had. I mean, he's pretty amazing. I actually had the opportunity to work out with him last offseason. And, the way he spins the ball is like some of the best. I played with Matt Ryan, who's really a legend, to become. And Joe Burrow is up there with him. He's a really good quarterback, and he's speechless. I think you see that every time he steps on the field on Saturdays.
Yeah, he's so cool, calm, and collected. I mean, how do you think he's able to? And I wouldn't call him average a year ago, but LSU's offense was, again, nowhere near what they've done this year. It's unheard of. But he went from a pretty decent quarterback to possibly having the greatest year, greatest season that any college football quarterback has had in history. Do you put that on the coaching? Do you put that on Burrow finally being comfortable? You just said he spins the ball with the best of them. I mean, this transition into one of the best has simply been amazing.
Right, and you could talk about maybe the offense, different style of offense, but you got to give Joe a lot of credit. Coming in, you always got to get like that kind of year under your belt to get used to what he came from a new environment in Ohio State, coming down to Louisiana, and I would say he needed that year on his belt to really get everything under his wing. I think this year, I mean, he proved to a lot of guys that he's the type of quarterback that he's putting up numbers that, like you said, you probably will never see again. To me, he's just unmatchable right now. It's impressive.
Yeah, he won every award possible. He had just an absolutely remarkable season, and he's a surefire number one draft pick, it seems like, at this point. And so much has been talked about Joe Brady, the passing game coordinator, the wide receivers coach, coming from the New Orleans Saints, bringing those NFL RPO schemes to this offense. You're in the NFL now. I mean, what's the difference that you see between the play calling and the scheming week in and week out from when you were at LSU and the play calling that was taking place then?
Yeah, I had the privilege of coming on the sideline for the first quarter when they played Georgia in the SEC championship, and for the first play, I can see a difference. They went 5 wide the first play or something like that, or the second play. Just by the way they spread the field out, spread the ball around. That's NFL like things. Everyone's gonna in the NFL. You don't have one guy just touching the ball. You don't just feed one guy. You don't just have one hot guy. The best teams spread the ball around. I think they do a great job with this offense of making sure everyone's involved. Make sure the playmakers are getting in space to make plays. And it's impressive, man. Like, I was on the sideline, I just felt the atmosphere. I just felt like they were going to win.
Yeah, I mean, there was no doubt. And then you look at what they were able to do in the Peach Bowl against Oklahoma in that first half. I mean, Joe Burrow goes for over 400 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2 quarters. It's just insane. And like you said, they spread the ball around in such a way that defenses have to pick and choose when they're going to pressure Joe Burrow, when they're going to double team Jamar Chase, and you just can't stop everybody. It's been absolutely remarkable. Let's look forward, though, to the national championship game, and they're going to be taking on number 3 Clemson. The star power that's going to be on that field will be amazing. It's going to be a surefire battle that everybody's excited to see. Clemson's got the experience. There's no doubt about it. This is their 4th appearance in the college football playoff, their 3rd straight national championship. But LSU plays in the SEC. I think there's a lot to be said here, Russell, because you got to go to Alabama. You got to take on Florida. You got to play Auburn. It's a week in, week out battle of attrition. How do you think playing in the SEC will prepare LSU as compared to Clemson, who's been here before?
Right. And you've kind of said it. We've kind of played throughout this year on a similar stage. Now, there's no stage like the national championship, but playing against Alabama, at Alabama, then coming back home and having to play number 9 Auburn. We played on those type of stages all year. So, you're going to have a lot of guys out there that feel they've been under some of the most pressure situations. Even though Clemson, has a lot of experience being in this type of game, in this particular game, we've had the experience of being in this type of game throughout this year. So I think when everything gets hot, the pressure gets on, you're going to see a lot of poise out there with our guys, just because, like you said, in the SEC, we're used to things like this. So,
on the offensive side of the ball for Clemson, they've got so many weapons: Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Justin Ross, T. Higgins. You're an offensive player. How will LSU's defense be able to scheme and slow down the multiple avenues of attack that Clemson will have?
They don't call us DBU for nothing, man. We always have a good secondary. And I think you said the best. Slow them down is just the key part, because the type of offense we have, you're never going to score a lot of points. And all we have to do is really slow them down. And I don't think they'll be able to keep up with us. It's
pretty crazy to think that a couple of years ago, when Coach O was named LSU's head coach, not a lot of people were fired up. LSU fans wanted Tom Herman, who went to Texas. Coach O was the interim. He ended up keeping his job. It seems like he's got everything very well figured out on the Bayou. What do you think his message to the team will be before they take the field in Louisiana? What an atmosphere that's going to be.
What I think it's going to be what his message has been all year. You know, Coach O always preaches one game at a time. I know they had a thing where they were basically going 1-0 each week, you know, taking it one game at a time. And he always preaches the heartbeat, you know, one team, one heartbeat. And I think since I've been there and he's taken over, that's something we've lived by, you know. When you play together, as you see the way this team has this year, you can't beat it, you can't match it, you know, especially when you have the type of talent that we're going to have on the field. You know, that's going to be his biggest message, I believe.
No question. Well, I got to ask you before we let you go. One, are you going to the national championship game? And two, I gotta get your prediction. Who's going to win and what's the score going to be?
Well, for one, I'll definitely. The plan is to definitely be there, on the sideline. And two, I don't want to.
Come on now. Grady gave us a score. Now, I'm sure you could guess what he said. Tell us who you think's going to win at least.
Yeah. Definitely LSU. I'll give LSU a 17-point victory.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah. Just to be a little generous. Or maybe 14. I'll give them a 14-point victory, 35-21.
Awesome.
Be a little more generous.
Awesome. Well, have fun at the game, Russell. Thanks so much for joining us, and congrats on an awesome 2019 season with the Atlanta Falcons. When we come back, Aaron's going to rejoin me, and we're going to break down some of our favorites from the 2019 season. Come on right back. You're watching Campus Store Live. We are back. Campus Store Live. Drew Butler, Aaron Murray on the other side of the screen. Big thanks to Russell Gage for joining us. LSU Tigers and the Clemson Tigers, a lot of them on the same team there for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm sure there'll be some extracurriculars on the line for Russell and Grady with that national championship looming on January 13th. Aaron, I can't believe the end of the season is already here. What a season it's been. Let's have some fun here. Let's give out some postseason awards from right here on Campus Floor Live. I'll give you the floor first. Aaron, we've talked about Joe Burrow week in and week out, and rightfully so. You mentioned it in the beginning of this show. He has had quite possibly the best season of any quarterback in college football history. But let's take Joe Burrow out of college football in 2019. Who do you think the best player was in the nation?
I think I got to go with J.K. Dobbins. I think we've seen him the entire year and kind of what he's done and his performance, not only running the football, but catching out of the backfield as well. I mean, we're talking about a running back has over 2,000 yards, 21 touchdowns, just under 7 yards per carry. He is a difference maker, and you saw it in the game versus Clemson the other night. I mean, if he was healthy and he doesn't get that sprained ankle, whatever it is, in the second half, there's a good chance Ohio State continues to run it right down the throat of that Clemson defense. So I got to give my nod to him. He's just so versatile. He's so strong, powerful, has the speed to once he breaks through the hole to take it the distance. And he's been fun to watch this entire football season.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins had an absolutely phenomenal season for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Two other players did as well. Justin Fields, who was in New York for the Heisman ceremony, and Chase Young, who I don't think should have been there because he was suspended for 2 games. But he was quite possibly the best player defensively in the nation. I'm going to go with another Big Ten running back, though, Jonathan Taylor for Wisconsin, Aaron. If you look back at Derrick Henry's Heisman campaign in 2015, across the board in 2019, Jonathan Taylor surpassed him in every single statistical category. And he wasn't even invited to New York for the Heisman Trophy. I mean, it was just an insane season for great play in college football. Jalen Hurts, of course, finished second in the Heisman voting, and Justin Fields, I mean, I'll just mention it again, 40 passing touchdowns, Aaron, 1 interception, and in addition, 10 rushing touchdowns. So truly unbelievable individual play. Let's go to team play. Obviously, LSU was the story, and again, rightfully so. But what's the team that surprised you the most in 2019? Maybe on the bad side or the good side?
I'm going to stick with the positive here. It is Christmas time, so let's give a little something good. I got to go with the Baylor Bears. What they did in the Big 12 this season. Matt Rule getting that program heading in the right direction, beating Oklahoma, getting to the Big 12 championship game almost beating Oklahoma once again to possibly get into the college football playoff. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. No offense to the Baylor Bears. They don't have the same amount of talent as Texas. They don't have the same amount of talent as Oklahoma. His ability to coach those guys and get them in the right place, both offensively and defensively, week in and week out in that conference to compete, to get that 11-2 record. And who knows, maybe they go out there in the Sugar Bowl and beat Georgia and get to 12-2. I think at that point, I think even win or lose, Matt Rule most likely is going to be the next head coach of the New York Giants. But what an incredible year by them. He's done everything right. I know you're probably going to go with your row your boat over there, but I'll stick with the Baylor Bears.
How'd you know? Yes. My favorite team this season, and the best story, I think, and I'll give you the best thing I saw this season at the end of this, but the Minnesota Golden Gophers. I mean, what a phenomenal year PJ Fleck and Minnesota had. They really rallied an entire state and revived that football program. College Game Day visited them for the first time in such a long time, I think actually for the first time ever, and they beat Penn State in just an unbelievable game right there in the Twin Cities. And the best thing I saw all season, and it was awarded an award, at the College Football Award Show, was when Casey O'Brien, the fourth-string quarterback, the three-time cancer survivor, got in the football game against Rutgers and held for an extra point. I mean, those are the things right there, Aaron, that tell you why college football means so much to so many people. And I think that also just goes to show you the culture that PJ Fleck has built at Minnesota. He is a fantastic head coach. His players love him. And a moment like that really humanizes the game. It was the best thing I saw all season. What about you?
I think the best thing I've seen all season is LSU's offense. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I go back to when I talked to some of the players and the coaching staff in the SEC media days in Birmingham, and they're like, yeah, we're going to score 50 points a game. I'm like, no, you're not. You're LSU. You're going to score 20 points a game. Your defense is going to win it. And what do? They go out there and score 47, 48 points a game, put up 49 points against Oklahoma in the college football playoff game. I mean, just every single week, I literally am pinching myself saying, I'm watching LSU go out there and be the best offense this entire season, one of the best offenses I've seen in my entire life, each and every single week. There was not one week that team let down on the offense side of the football. So props to those guys, the hard work from the receivers working their butts off all summer, to Joe Brady, to Joe Burrow, to everyone on that football staff. It has been a special season to watch that offense really grow. Hopefully they can keep it up. They got to find a new quarterback next season, but they got the right place and nucleus and kind of mindset going forward.
Yeah, I think it goes to show you the humility that Steve Ensminger has, the offensive coordinator for LSU, because you listen to Coach O talk about the decision to bring Joe Brady in this offseason. And keep in mind, Steve Ensminger had been at LSU for a very long time, one of the longest tenured coaches on that coaching staff. Ed Orgeron knew after they were shut out by Alabama a year ago that something had to change. And you see a couple of football programs across the country right now who are kind of at those same crossroads. He went to Steve Ensminger and said, we need to change. Are you willing to listen? And Ensminger said, let's do it, coach, whatever's right for the team. They went and found Joe Brady at the New Orleans Saints. Brady comes in, works with Steve Ensminger, and we have heard time and time again how they're going to reinvent the wheel at LSU, and it never comes to fruition, as you said. But man, did they find lightning in a bottle, and it seems like Joe Brady's going to get paid a bunch of money to stay at LSU to get a little bit more experience, as I've told you all year, Aaron, and then probably go be an offensive coordinator or a head coach somewhere else. What about the most head-scratching thing you saw all year, something that really made you think, wow, I cannot believe I'm witnessing this?
Well, I would say Texas, the Longhorns. I mean, we talk about Texas is back, Longhorns up after that win, the Sugar Bowl versus Georgia, and then they go 7-5. I really think Tom Herman is now on the hot seat heading into next season. It's just you can't go 7-5 at Texas. This is a team with a lot of tradition, a lot of championships, and you own the state of Texas, for goodness sake. So you got to get doing better. You got the talent. You're in a conference in the Big 12 that is it's good. It's not elite. You're not in the Big 10. You're not in the SEC. You should be performing at a higher level. He has not gotten the job done, especially with a quarterback like Sam Ehlinger back there kind of leading the way. So I think for me, biggest disappointment, definitely Texas. We'll see if they can turn it around. I'm a little worried because Texas A&M is kind of on the rise. I think they're kind of starting to steal some of those big recruits that Texas usually gets. So who knows? I think he has to get to 9, possibly 10 wins next season to kind of really hold on to his job in the future.
The thing that made me scratch my head the most was the attrition that Alabama had to put up with from an injury standpoint. It seemed like week after week after week, they were losing a starter, they were losing an All-American, they were losing a really productive player on either the offensive or defensive side of the ball. It started in the preseason, Aaron, when they lost Dylan Moses, their first team preseason All-American. Happened middle of the season when Tua Tagovailoa was lost with a broken hip. They lost 2 games this year, and they allowed more than 45 points in each of those games against Auburn and against LSU. So that made me scratch my head. Usually Alabama's that reload team instead of reset. We'll see if they're able to reset and reload in 2020. Thinking of 2020, though, which team is on the rise heading into next season? It sounded like you're leaning towards Texas A&M.
I think Texas A&M has a chance to really rise in that. You had a Kellen Mond at the quarterback position. You got a team that only had 5 scholarship seniors on it, so super, super young. They're going to be bringing a ton of experience back in the SEC West, which is going to lose Joe Burrow, possibly Tua. So I really like A&M, but the team for me is actually North Carolina.
Oh, really?
A team that it's the team that absolutely just dominated Temple the other night in their bowl game. I mean, a really good Temple team, a great defense, went up and down the field. You got a great head coach who now has the ability to go out there and recruit heading into his second season. And you got a freshman quarterback in Sam Howell who had 38 touchdowns. I mean, that's the thing nowadays. You got to have a gunslinger back there. You're in a weak conference in the ACC. I'm not saying they're going to beat Clemson next year, but I think they're moving that program in the right direction where you get 7 wins this year. You get a big-time bowl win. You return your freshman quarterback. You'd be able to go out there and recruit a little bit better. I see them getting to that 9, maybe 10 wins next season for North Carolina.
All right, I'm going to stay in the ACC as well, and I think it has a lot to do with who they just hired as a head coach, and it's Florida State. I mean, Mike Norvell is proven. He knows how to win. He's coming from Memphis, obviously, with their prolific offense. The cupboard is not bare at Florida State. Aaron, you and I have said it week after week on this very show. They've got the talent. They have the recruits. Can Mike Norvell instill a sense of confidence and a process in Tallahassee to make these guys understand that there's not too much room to make up when it comes to competing in the ACC? Maybe they can have a type of season where they show up in a New Year's Six Bowl in 2020. So I'm going to circle the Florida State Seminoles in the ACC and say that they are my team to watch out for in 2020. Let's wrap this thing up, though. 2019, what a season it was. What will 2019 be remembered most for?
I think for me, I will remember just the quarterback play. I mean, you talked about just in the Heisman, all these quarterbacks and the crazy stats they're putting up. It's no longer college football is about defense and running the football. College football now is about scoring a ton of points and having a quarterback that not only can throw the football, but create with his legs as well. You're not just seeing that in the college football ranks. You're also seeing that in the NFL and kind of how the game is slowly evolving into that type. So, I mean, we talked about in the first segment about what the score prediction for this national championship. I said 35-31. You said 38-35.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of points, man. That's a ton of points. And you know why? Because both teams have 2 elite quarterbacks. 2 quarterbacks are going to be selected first overall in the next 2 NFL drafts, elite receivers and elite running backs. That is what it takes now. For so long, college football has been about defense, defense, defense. Defense wins championships. For 150 years, defense has won championships. Or 149 years. Well, 150 years now, it's now starting to change. Offense now wins, and you got to have a quarterback and a gunslinger. So for me, that's kind of now the evolution of this game. And it's as an offensive guy, I love it. It's exciting. And this national championship game is going to be extremely exciting.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of piggyback off that. You said quarterback play was what most stood out to you in 2019. I think 2019 may go down as the year where everybody finally realizes that 4 teams might be correct when it comes to the college football playoff, because what you saw in 2019 were those quarterbacks that you talked about, Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, and Tua Tagovailoa and Trevor Lawrence really separating themselves from the rest of the entire nation. I mean, you just saw number 1 LSU absolutely dismantle the 4-seeded Oklahoma Sooners in the Peach Bowl, 63-28. You telling me that you want to see 5, 6, and 7 play in that as well? No, I don't think so. I think that 4 is right, and that those non-competitive semifinal games need to go across the nation and say, hey, look, guys, we might have this thing figured out. It's fun to complain about it and debate about it week in and week out when you're trying to figure out which 4 should be there. but 4 is the right number. And I think at the end of this season, 2019, whoever's crowned national champion, we will realize that they have got it all figured out. And who's going to win, Aaron? Who knows? But you and I both agree that it's going to be an absolutely phenomenal game, January 13th, when number 1 LSU takes on number 3 Clemson in New Orleans. And what a season it's been, Aaron. I can't believe it's already coming to a close. Tons of memorable moments, and no doubt there are a few more to be made with this amazing national championship game. A huge thanks to Grady Jarrett for joining us, and Russell Gage to give us his thoughts on the national championship matchup between Clemson and LSU. Aaron, for everything you've done, I'm going to send us out. Thanks for watching Campus Lore Live.